to success.
She went full throttle into everything she did.
She was going for her doctorate.
I really wanted to get it.
She was on the brink of even greater things.
Until one morning, she didn't wake up.
She's not breathing.
There is no sign of a struggle.
What could have caused this woman's death?
Was it a single act of desperation?
She might have overdosed.
There are 2 empty pill bottles and what looks like a handwritten note.
Was there too much on her plate?
Or will the investigation reveal the sinister truth?
It's not about that.
Forensics doesn't lie.
Nobody's accusing you, you're not under arrest.
The lights come on for detectives.
Invoking my right to remain silent.
September 24th, 2015. It's just before dawn in Litchfield Park, Arizona, a family-friendly suburb of Phoenix.
It has a small town feel as opposed to the city of Phoenix.
It's a pretty quiet suburb neighborhood with families, good schools, and great people.
It's like the jewel of the West Side. If you want to raise a family, that's the place to do it.
Noni, it's time to get up.
But even in the quietest suburb, no family is immune to tragedy.
Oh my God, Noni! Noni, wake up!
Police get this frantic 911 call from a man named Elias Udachime.
He says that his wife, 37-year-old Shinoni Udachime, is unresponsive.
I was trying to wake her up from getting the kids ready for school.
He couldn't wake his wife and she's not moving.
Is your wife breathing?
The answer appears to be no.
I need ambulance here, sir. I need ambulance. We got him en route.
He was scared.
Do you know how to do CPR? No, I don't. How do you do that? Okay, I'll tell you how.
With the guidance of the dispatcher, he starts performing CPR.
Put the palm of one hand in between your breast, interlock the other hand, and you're going to do compressions. You're going to do them really fast. Keep your arms straight. You're going to go like 1 and 2 and 3 and 4.
Something's terribly wrong.
Originally from Nigeria, Noni and Elias Udachime emigrated to the United States to make a better life for themselves and their children.
Their number one priority was providing a stable and profitable life for their kids.
They were seeking a better financial situation that could also help support the family that they were leaving behind in Nigeria. The Udachimes were pursuing the American dream.
The young family first settled in Virginia.
Elias worked in IT, and that was a really great job for him, which paid well.
IT is always in high demand, so you pretty much can go anywhere.
But Noni also wanted to do her part to support the family.
She enrolled in pharmacy school.
Education is extremely important in Nigerian culture.
A lot of immigrants see higher education as the pathway to progress.
And pharmacists were also in high demand.
A career in pharmacy was recession-proof, and it would allow her to make a good living to support her family.
And it wasn't long before she got recruited.
Noni is very smart, and a lot of people recognized how brilliant she is, especially in the pharmaceutical area. And she was offered a job in Arizona.
Phoenix?
I know it's a big move, but it's a great opportunity.
We've made bigger moves in the past.
They knew it wasn't going to be easy, but I think they were willing to take that risk if it meant a greater reward on the other side for their entire family.
So the family moved to Arizona, joining hundreds of thousands of immigrants chasing the American dream.
1 in 8 Arizonians originate from another country,
including a cousin of Noni's who lives in Phoenix.
They ended up buying this beautiful home in the Litchfield Park neighborhood.
This particular community, the immigrant population is pretty present.
There were good schools and lots of family-friendly outdoor activities.
And the family quickly settled in.
Elias was also doing well. He found a job in the IT industry.
It's still one of the hottest jobs out there.
But Noni was always striving to do more.
She decided to enroll in a PhD program. I mean, this was a woman who was so motivated and driven, and she wanted to further that education, and it would only make her more profitable in the industry as a whole as well.
It means a lot more late nights, and I'm gonna need help with the kids. And
Don't worry, we'll be fine.
Really?
We'll be fine.
They kind of live the American dream.
They really wanted to build wealth for themselves and their family.
And by the fall of 2015, all those long hours and late nights were on the verge of paying off.
She was finishing up her doctorate.
Noni was a rising star.
She was enthusiastic about the future.
But now, Noni's bright future is in jeopardy.
Noni's husband is on the phone with Litchfield Park 911.
He is saying that he found her unresponsive in their bed.
Okay. And you're not going to stop, okay?
They told him to do the CPR till they got there.
Yeah, I'm here. Just continue doing the compressions, okay?
He's making every effort to revive his wife.
Keep doing those compressions.
He doesn't give up until paramedics arrive.
They move Noni to the floor.
But it's too late.
When they take over, there just was no way to save her.
Noni is already dead.
Dispatch Unit 47. I got a DOA, black female.
And the couple's bedroom may contain a clue as to how she died.
There is no sign of physical violence, no sign of struggle.
But on the nightstand, there were some unmistakable signs.
There are 2 empty pill bottles and what looks like a handwritten note.
37-year-old Nigerian immigrant Noni Udachime had built a great life for herself in suburban Phoenix.
She has a loving family. She has 4 beautiful children.
They were the motivating factor to go get her PhD.
She had a vision for what she wanted for her children and for herself.
But now, that bright future is gone.
After Elias called 911 and reported finding her unresponsive, EMTs pronounced her dead.
And first responders have reason to suspect she may have taken her own life.
There's no immediate signs of physical marks on Noni's body. It looks like she just passed away in her sleep.
They discover pill bottles that are near the bed and also what looks like a letter.
Could that letter be a suicide note?
It will be up to the medical examiner to make the official ruling.
An autopsy will still need to be done to determine the exact cause of death.
In the meantime, homicide detectives arrive on the scene and open their own investigation.
You want to go in with an open mind. You don't want to try to fit a theory. You just want to try to collect the facts.
The detectives begin by taking a closer look at the 2 empty pill bottles on the nightstand.
One is for lorazepam. It's like Xanax. It's used to treat anxiety and sleep disorders. The other is cyclobenzaprine, which is a muscle relaxer. These 2 pills could lead to a deadly overdose.
The question is, did Noni take enough of each of these pills to cause her death?
One thing is certain, though. it's unlikely that Noni accidentally overdosed.
Being educated in the field of pharmacy, she would know what a toxic level of medication would be.
But does that mean the note by her bed is a suicide note?
It's addressed to my dear husband.
In the note, Noni is apologizing for all the hurtful words that she said.
That part sure sounded like a suicide note.
But it's far from definitive.
It doesn't suggest that she was planning to do anything to harm herself.
Typically, when people are leaving suicide notes, then they end it with, "I can't take this anymore," or things of that nature. And that's not how Noni ended the letter.
Rather, the letter ended on a hopeful note, saying that she planned on building a healthy and happy family.
This is concerning to detectives.
As detectives finish up in the bedroom, Elias makes arrangements for Noni's cousin to come pick up the children.
Come pick the children up for me. Yeah, they don't know what's happening.
He doesn't want the kids to see everything that's going on.
With Noni's cousin on her way, Elias speaks with detectives about the moments leading up to his 911 call.
Elias explains that he and Noni they get the kids ready for school, and then they get themselves ready for work. But when his alarm went off this morning, she didn't wake up.
Hey, Noni, time to get up.
He kept nudging her. She's not moving.
Noni! Oh my God.
That's when he dialed 911.
She's not breathing.
I didn't know what else to do. I don't know CPR.
Elias is distraught.
And when the detectives mention the letter and the pills they found by the bed, he totally breaks down.
He said he was afraid that this might happen.
Why is that?
Because I'd upset her.
Elias admits that they had been arguing.
He said it was all about Noni wanting to move her mother from Africa to the United States.
It's not uncommon with immigrant families to have in-laws living with them.
But Elias wasn't thrilled at the prospect of having his mother-in-law move in with them.
He says that she actually lived with him a couple years back in Virginia, and that caused a lot of tension.
However, Noni was very close to her mom and wanted to help in any way that she could.
And I told her, I said, it's too much. You already have a lot on your plate.
She had been taking on extra shifts.
She was always getting home late.
In fact, Elias tells detectives that all the kids were already in bed when Noni got home the night before.
Long day?
It's not over yet.
Instead of going right to bed, she wanted to get the meals prepped for the next day.
Elias says he visited with her in the kitchen for about 30 minutes.
I'm gonna go ahead and go upstairs and go to bed.
Okay, I'll be up soon.
All right.
Then he went upstairs and took one of his sleeping pills.
I must have fallen asleep before she came upstairs.
He didn't see her again until he tried to wake her up.
Has Noni been known to take sleeping pills?
Sometimes.
He did tell detectives that from time to time she would use some, but it was not a lot.
He also said that she'd gotten the muscle relaxer a couple of weeks ago. She had some pain in her lower back, but he wasn't sure if she'd taken them regularly.
And he's certain she wouldn't unintentionally overdose.
Elias tells them she was an experienced pharmacist. There was no way that this was some sort of accident.
He thinks that it's far more likely that she purposely took those drugs.
I know my wife was under a lot of pressure, but I should not have given her such a hard time about her mother coming to stay with us.
Elias started getting really emotional.
Before they end their interview with Elias, Noni's cousin Beverly arrives to pick up the children.
They had Elias taken to the station to give a formal statement and to give him time to collect himself while they spoke to the cousin.
She obviously wasn't there when the incident occurred, but she still may be able to share some useful information about Noni's personal life.
Do you mind if we ask you a few questions?
Not at all. I'm not sure if I can help.
Beverly explains to the police that they weren't very close.
They hadn't had much contact since Beverly left Nigeria, but recently connected when Noni and Elias moved to Arizona.
They were just getting to know each other again.
They were part of the same group of Nigerians that lived in Arizona, but she didn't have a lot of information for police about the history of Noni and Elias.
Anything with her state of mind?
Did she seem stressed or anything?
Well, maybe.
There was one thing that Noni's cousin knew.
She says it is possible that Noni was struggling with deep depression.
She had had kind of a troubled childhood.
Noni's father abandoned them when she was very young.
Detectives investigating the mysterious death of Noni Udachime are trying to determine if the 37-year-old Nigerian immigrant took her own life.
They found 2 empty pill bottles next to her bed, alongside a note.
These are all suspicious circumstances.
And now, her cousin has told detectives that Noni may have been struggling with deep-seated depression.
Noni's father abandoned them when she was very young.
She was forced to grow up very quickly.
As the oldest, Noni felt responsible for her mother and her younger siblings. That's one of the reasons why she became a pharmacist.
It was a high-paying, stable career path, and she knew that it could support her mother and her siblings back home in Africa.
And on top of all of that, Noni was also pursuing her PhD.
She complained about it?
No. She just always seems so exhausted.
It could be that everything fell on her shoulders and was getting too much.
In that mental state, she could have found that the only way out was to die by suicide. And so that was a plausible theory.
Plausible, at least to the detectives, but not Noni's cousin.
She was shocked when Elias called her.
Even with the possibility of stress and depression, she knows Noni loves her family. She would not take her own life.
She mentioned the issues with her husband?
Not really.
Any fights? Anything that you're aware of?
No.
She describes Elias as a very nice person, and they seem very happy.
She says from what she knows, they had a good marriage. She didn't know of any issues.
But was it all a facade?
Noni was a very private person and really didn't share a whole lot of information with Beverly at all as far as her personal life.
So she doesn't know exactly what's going on in the home, but she does know that Noni talks about the kids all the time, and she really enjoys being a mother.
Thank you for your time.
Hoping for more insight into Noni's mindset, the detectives head to the pharmacy where she works.
The manager says that everyone was surprised to learn of Noni's death.
She was supposed to be at work, but she never showed up. No one could get a hold of her.
They assumed that maybe the kids were sick because Noni didn't just miss work, but they didn't think anything more than that.
They had no idea she was dead.
It wasn't until Elias called the pharmacy and told them that they found out.
They were further surprised when Elias said that she had taken some sleeping pills.
Why is that?
It just doesn't seem like her.
The manager explains Noni was very precautious about taking any medicines.
She said this went from everything from prescriptions to even Advil. So to them, it was unfathomable that Noni would take prescriptions that were originally prescribed to Elias.
She seemed particularly stressed to you?
Maybe a little because of all the hours she's been putting in.
Noni had been taking a lot of extra shifts.
Noni was known as a floater. She had a home pharmacy, but she would travel to other locations.
So maybe she did need a little extra help sleeping.
But her manager also doubts that Noni would accidentally overdose.
She is a pharmacist. Noni knows the safe dosages to take.
Did you ever talk about how things were at home?
Just small talk mostly.
She didn't say a whole lot about her relationship with Elias.
She did say something the other day that kind of surprised me.
She had actually disclosed some marital issues.
She did mention she was thinking about getting divorced.
Detectives investigating the sudden, mysterious death of Chinoni Urachime have just learned that she and her husband Elias may have been heading for divorce.
You hear that almighty D word, divorce. All of the lights come on for detectives.
If Noni was trying to leave her marriage, that may have given Elias motive.
Elias is a person of interest at that point.
So detectives head back to speak to Elias, who has been waiting at the station. But when they arrive, there's a message waiting for them.
It's from Noni's mother in Nigeria.
She had heard about her daughter's death, and she wanted to offer up some information to detectives.
When the detectives follow up with Noni's mother, she has plenty to say.
She's adamant that it was not suicide.
She knows her baby, and she said her daughter would never take her own life.
She says Noni loved life and would never hurt herself.
There's no way she did this on purpose. She had so many plans for her future.
She was finishing up a PhD program.
She was excited about the future for herself and for her children.
She loved her kids. There is no way that she would just leave them.
She also says that Noni had been making plans with the family.
She recently spoken to her brother and planned on sending him money.
Noni's mother is certain that her daughter would not be making future plans if she intended on ending her life.
And if Noni didn't end her life, her mother claims to know who did.
She points the finger at the husband.
Elias did this. I just know it.
She saw something in this man that she simply didn't trust.
She was really the first person to point squarely at Elias and say, he's done this.
In fact, according to Noni's mother, Elias had even attempted to kill her daughter before.
Noni's mother referred to a prior incident that occurred in Virginia. And in that particular incident, Noni and Elias were driving and they began arguing.
Noni had told her mom that they had been arguing over money.
And while they're fighting, Elias turns the car quickly and runs into a tree.
On purpose?
That's what Noni said.
Noni told her mother, Elias tried to kill me.
Was she hurt?
Well, no. But it really scared her.
The crash had turned out to be relatively minor.
Neither one of them were seriously injured.
But Noni was convinced he was trying to take her out.
And her mother thinks that things went further downhill once Noni and Elias moved to Arizona.
Noni's mother says Noni was texting her brother the other day, and when referring to her husband, she said that his mind was hateful and evil.
It goes to her mindset as far as what concerns she had about Elias.
She was so afraid of him.
Her mother said that's one reason Noni wanted her to move in with them.
Mom was thinking, if only I could have got on a plane earlier, if only I had have maybe moved and relocated there earlier.
Because according to Noni's mother, the troubles between her daughter and Elias continued.
She said there was another incident back in February.
Noni's mom doesn't know a lot of details, but the police were called.
Okay, thank you.
After getting off the phone with Noni's mother, detectives follow up on her claims.
Detectives reach out to the police in Virginia to pull some records. And sure enough, police responded to a single vehicle crash into a tree.
But rather than an attempted homicide, the report was routine.
It wasn't anything that was escalated because there weren't a lot of injuries.
Detectives also searched the files in Arizona for any records related to the incident in February.
Turns out Elias was arrested on a domestic assault charge.
The couple was arguing. Noni blocked the doorway. Elias got loud. He got aggressive.
And when she tried to call 911, he got violent.
When she pulled out her phone, he punched her.
Noni was ultimately able to call law enforcement. They responded and they placed him under arrest for domestic abuse.
And that incident landed him in jail overnight.
But after that night in jail, nothing happened.
Noni at the time didn't want to go forward with the charges.
This is not new. In many instances, you'll find where the victim and the perpetrator start talking and then emotion is brought back into the picture.
That's what happened in Elias and Noni's case.
He convinced her not to press charges, that he's going to change.
That's typically the thought pattern of victims. I don't get hit all the time. It's only when we're in certain situations or when tempers flare. And so most times you will find that victims won't press charges.
Coupled with her coworkers' claims that Noni was considering a divorce, the domestic violence arrest just proves to the detectives that they're on the right track.
It's the beginning of a pattern. Elias doesn't get his way, so that's when the physical altercations begin to happen.
But does this mean that he killed his wife?
For the moment, it's only a hunch.
Any investigator that has investigated domestic violence-related crimes sees exactly where this is going.
But when the autopsy report comes in, the medical examiner's initial findings do suggest an overdose.
They did find drugs in Noni's system.
They were at potentially toxic levels.
But there was more.
According to the medical examiner, that's not how she died.
Noni was strangled.
Based on evidence found at the scene, detectives investigating the death of Noni Urachime initially considered the possibility that the 37-year-old wife and mother could have taken her own life.
There are no visible marks on Noni's body.
There's this note, there's 2 pill bottles. To the untrained eye, it would appear that this was a suicide.
But when the detectives get the autopsy results from the medical examiner, the findings aren't consistent with suicide.
Sometimes what appears on the surface or what is obvious is not. And that autopsy revealed the petechia in the eyes, which is a compromise of the vascular system, the capillaries and the veins.
That's when the blood vessels pop under the skin and leave little dots, like stippling.
We see that petechia or hemorrhaging as a result of strangulation.
So it kind of contradicts the whole story. If she overdosed, why is it showing up?
For the detectives, the answer is clear.
What originally looked like this open-closed suicide case now is looking like a homicide.
Even if it looks like it was a suicide, forensics doesn't lie.
Given everything they've learned about Elias and Noni's marriage, detectives have little doubt who is responsible.
Strangulation is a very common occurrence in domestic violence-related situations.
And we know that there was a domestic violence incident shortly before this occurred.
And according to Noni's coworkers, she was contemplating divorcing Elias.
So by the time the detectives get the cause of death, they are locked in on him. They just have to be able to find the evidence and the information to prove it.
They start with Elias himself.
He'd been waiting at the station to talk more in depth with the detectives.
They put him in this interview room. All of this stuff is par for the course. It's what investigators do.
He's thinking that this is an open shut case. He's just trying to wrap up some loose ends, things like that.
But that's not exactly what the detectives have in mind.
He's left alone with the cameras running.
And after stewing in the room for a little while, his demeanor starts to change.
It is clear that he knows that something might be going on.
He becomes suspicious.
He pulls out his phone and he makes a call.
He calls his lawyer, which I think that's pretty savvy.
No, they told me that they need to take me to the sheriff office to give me, to question me. So that's why I asked them, do I need a lawyer? They said, you don't need a lawyer, but I called anyway.
During the call, Elias brings his attorney up to speed.
Yeah, they were asking me questions. I was telling them what was going on. And afterwards, they now said that I need to go to the sheriff office for further questioning. I told them that she was so angry that over at that body that her mother has to come. And that's only what I could possibly think the reason why she would do that. And she also left a note, a letter.
He seemed very calm, very matter-of-fact about the whole case.
Which is surprising considering the situation Elias was in.
You can see that it's starting to head toward charging him potentially at that point.
Okay. So what do we need to do here?
And when the detective returns to the interrogation room, Elias takes his lawyer's advice.
I'm invoking my right to remain silent.
Elias completely shuts down.
Detectives tell Elias he is not under arrest. They just want to ask him a couple questions.
And then he says, I don't want to talk to you anymore.
I can talk to you without my attorney.
When detectives finally sit down with 51-year-old Elias Urachime to speak with him about the death of his wife, Noni, he refuses to talk.
My lawyer said I should not answer any question.
Every citizen has that right. However, as an investigator, when someone lawyers up on you, the lights go off. There's some notion of guilt there.
As a police officer, you do wonder why somebody would not want to share if they didn't have anything to hide. You can't hold that against a person because that is absolutely within their right.
And if you don't want to give us a statement, that's fine. At this point, that's completely fine. But that doesn't relieve us from keeping you here and letting us do our job.
They're pretty confident that he's their man.
They're ready to charge Elias with this.
So prosecutors take the case against Elias to the grand jury, hoping for an indictment.
They said he felt he was losing control of her. She's getting more educated and she didn't need him financially.
There was so much strife in the marriage that Noni had planned on leaving.
And on the night of September 23rd, Elias had taken matters into his own hands.
Elias wasn't willing to go quietly.
She underestimated how evil he was.
What are you doing?
Just take these.
Why?
Because I said take them. They'll help you sleep.
But
prosecutors believe that the night of her death, he forced her to take those pills.
But his plan to make her death look like a suicide didn't quite work.
When he saw that the muscle relaxant and the sleep aid only made her drowsy but did not immediately kick in and kill her, he decided to ensure that she died.
So he carefully put his hands around her neck and strangled her.
That's where the trauma to her neck that the medical examiner found comes into play.
Prosecutors allege that Elias then tried to cover up what he'd done.
He sets out a letter that she'd most likely written him after a previous argument, and he waits until morning.
Then he calls 911 and puts in this frantic call for help.
She couldn't wake up. This allegation that she had committed suicide. It was only supported by his statement.
But would it be enough to raise reasonable doubt?
The holes in the case were concerning. I don't think there's a way that they could ever prove that he forced her to take those pills.
Elias doesn't believe that they have enough evidence.
But after hearing their case against him, the grand jury moves to indict Elias Urachime on murder charges.
He ends up being charged with second-degree murder based on the prosecution's theory of the case.
However, that's all it was, a theory.
Evidence is circumstantial. There's no physical evidence that could link him to this.
There were some concerns from the prosecution point of view as to whether they felt comfortable that they would get a conviction in a trial. No matter how solid you think your case is, the juries are unpredictable.
So with the trial date approaching, the prosecutors reach out to Elias and offer him a deal.
The defendant is not willing to risk being charged with murder too. The prosecutor is not willing to walk away with nothing by trying a murder two case. Where do you land? You land in the world of manslaughter.
At the 11th hour, Elias decides to take a plea deal for manslaughter.
In exchange for his guilty plea, Elias is sentenced to just 5 years in prison.
They just didn't want to take a gamble that the evidence was so circumstantial. Something is better than nothing.
But for Noni's family, it's a devastating blow.
Many family members believe Elias got away with it.
It's got to be excruciatingly difficult to know that somebody that killed your loved one, that was responsible for the death, for essentially destroying that family. It would be very difficult to be able to accept why he was given such a good deal.
Sometimes justice doesn't hit a clear home run.
And there were no winners in this case.
The 4 kids were placed into foster care and eventually adopted.
My heart, of course, always goes out to the children. In domestic violence cases, they always end up being the unintended victims.
It's the devastating collapse of a family once on the edge of success.
This is literally a family that has been shredded apart, a mom that's gone, a dad that is now estranged, children that have been placed in foster care and now are adopted, and it's so cyclical.
There's really no absolute closure for anybody. In the end, we really lost a driven and caring member of this community and a mother.
Noni represents the everyday person, the everyday Black woman who's striving to be a good mother,
A fun vacation in Shreveport, Louisiana turns into an absolute nightmare.
I'm calling for shots fired.
The place looked like a war zone.
There's been a shooting.
A young detective with a relentless drive.
Never give up. I'm gonna keep going until I get some kind of answers.
Must piece together.
There are 2 different guns.
One of the most challenging cases he's ever worked.
Unbelievable. This was a tough one. There was nothing connecting the victim to the shooter.
Nothing is making sense.
That's him. That's the guy right here.
A case that appears to be open and shut.
So you don't know anything about a shooting that occurred on that date? No, sir.
But it's completely upside down.
I've recovered a firearm.
It's not until a fateful twist,
oh my God,
that the true killer is revealed.
I'm working a homicide here.
You can't make this stuff up. It was that unbelievable.
We're in Shreveport, Louisiana, and as it's known in the hip-hop world, Ratchet City.
Being here in Shreveport takes me back to my very first homicide. My first victim was shot in Atlanta, tried to make it back home to Texas, and died on a Trailways bus in Shreveport, Louisiana. We're driving through the west side of the city, a section known as Monk House. The police are called out here on the regular due to the high crime rate.
And on one hot, sticky night in the summer of 2020, that hotel right over there turned a family's vacation into a total nightmare.
Shreveport Police, what's your emergency?
I'm calling from the front desk at Country Inn and Suite, and I'm calling for shots fired.
Police raced to the scene, and they've got multiple people shot. Cops scour the area, but there's no suspect to be found.
Shreveport Dispatch then calls Detective Kenny Thompson and assigns him to this case.
I'm in like a deep sleep, but I have a very loud, annoying cell phone that's specifically a work phone, so the only time that phone rings is for something very serious, something important.
Hello?
There's been a shooting.
Where?
A hotel over in Monk House.
They gave me a brief synopsis of what was going on, and I have 3 black males that's been shot, 2 life-threatening, and 1 that was serious injury.
Be there soon.
So normally what helps me wake up, my rap music, I'll turn it up extra loud, and that gets me going.
Let's go.
I was born and raised in Shreveport. Growing up, I witnessed a lot of violent crimes, but I always wanted to pretty much be a part of the solution. I began my law enforcement career in 2013 with the Shreveport Police Department. And when I was 25 years old, in 2017, I got selected to transfer to the Homicide Division. When I caught this case, I had been assigned to the Homicide Unit for roughly 3.5 years. I had a 100% clearance rate in homicide.
100% solve rate is incredible. That's a testimony to who Kenny Thompson is. He was a detective before he ever put a badge on.
There's always some luck involved in homicide investigation, but you gotta put yourself in the right position to receive that luck. Kenny Thompson was on all the right intersections, all the street corners, making that luck land right in his lap. That's hard to pull off in this business.
After 2 in the morning, Detective Thompson arrives at the crime scene.
I like challenges. The deceased victims, they don't have a voice anymore, so basically you're that voice and you have to figure out what happened to them.
Fill me in.
Sir, we have 3 black male victims. They were taken to the hospital with multiple gunshot wounds.
One of the gunshot victims had passed away.
Detective Kenny Thompson learns that the victim is 22-year-old Hayshawn Collins.
Hayshawn had been shot multiple times in the chest area.
One of the other victims, he was shot several times in the chest area as well. His status was considered life-threatening at that time. And the third victim was considered a serious injury, but not life-threatening.
All crime scenes are telling a story. They have a first chapter and they have an ending. But the most important part is going to be the body of that story.
It kind of looked like a war zone. I saw multiple 9mm shell casings grouped pretty tight together. I could tell from the placement of the shell casings that my shooter was standing in the doorway of the hotel. I could tell my victims were actually running away because of the blood trail.
Make sure we enter those shell cases into Nibbins.
Yes, sir.
That stands for National Integrated Ballistic Information Network. It's a program that can analyze shell casings and cases against other known weapons to see if there's a match.
Maybe I'll get a hit for another crime.
If we recover a weapon, we could compare it to that, and we're able to see if that was actually fired from that weapon. I was like, this case is probably going to take some time to get solved because I really don't have anything right now at this moment.
So my only witnesses are at the hospital?
No, we have one. Detective Kenny Thompson just got a gift that fell out the sky. She's over here. He's got a heartbeat, a living and breathing witness that saw everything.
I'm Detective Thompson.
Shauna.
Her boyfriend was the victim with the non-life-threatening injuries.
My boyfriend, Jason. His brother is Hayshawn. We were in a big group.
This witness, Shauna, says that she arrived in Shreveport on vacation with 8 other adult couples and a bunch of children.
And what did you all do when you got here?
We checked in. We went and grabbed something to eat.
She says there's a party going on the 3rd floor of this hotel, and from that party, there's a litany of people crawling all around the property.
We were headed out when things popped off.
They were leaving the hotel when a female stopped Hayshawn's and Jason's cousin Darnell. She was complimenting his tattoos.
He basically told her, you know, he's a tattoo artist, and they had a conversation with her.
There was a guy. He got pissed. It was his girlfriend. I don't know.
This guy, he wasn't happy about it, and he wanted Darnell to know, I ain't good with you talking to my lady.
And they can tell it was tension, so one of the victims' group members pretty much told him, hey, let's go.
This family group aren't looking for trouble. They're there to have a good, peaceful vacation.
We tried to leave, but this guy just wouldn't let it go.
He's following them through the lobby. He's posturing, mean-mugging them.
Shauna's boyfriend and his cousin pretty much told the guys, hey, we're not here for that, but if you want to fight, we can fight.
Hayshawn tried to break it up.
Hayshawn was actually the peacemaker. He actually goes up and is the bigger man. He tries to defuse the situation, and it seems like it's done.
They all agreed to dap each other up and call it a truce, and pretty much walk away after that.
We thought it was over, but it wasn't.
As they're walking away, the suspect said that he was disrespected. Sometimes people feel like they're disrespected if you look at them the wrong way or if you stare at them too long. You know, it's just nonsense.
This punk, this coward decided that he was going to exact revenge the only way he knew how, being ignorant with his finger.
And then that's when the shots were fired from there.
When all the dust settled, Hayshawn was dead. His brother Jason was shot in the arm and in the leg, and their cousin Darnell, he was also in real bad shape.
I just ducked and ran for cover.
Now, was there one shooter?
One, but there was definitely a guy with him.
What did the shooter look like?
He was black. He definitely had dreads.
The description she gave, it was very vague. A black male with dreads, it's like 90% of Shreveport, so you don't really have much to go off of.
Is there anything else you can think of?
I don't know anything else.
Detective Thompson has an eyewitness and a description of a guy in some shell casings. It's not much to start with.
Right now, this case is looking like Mission Impossible. We have 3 black male victims. Homicide Detective Kenny Thompson investigates the shooting death of victim Hayshawn Collins outside of a hotel in Shreveport, Louisiana.
Make sure we enter those shell cases in Nibbins.
Physical evidence on scene was spent shell casings.
We were heading out when things popped off.
A witness comes forward who actually saw the shooting.
We tried to leave, but this guy just wouldn't let it go.
The motive seems to be some type of minor beef. I mean, this murder is completely senseless.
What did the shooter look like?
He definitely had dreads.
There's not a whole lot to work with to identify the killer.
I don't know anything else.
Detective Thompson's in a tough spot here. But his brother's undefeated in solving murders, so he ain't giving up.
If you see anything, give me a call, okay?
Had to put in whatever I had to do to get this solved.
Thank you.
They were truly innocent victims. The female from the victim, Hayshawn's group, told me that this party was going on the 3rd floor. So I went to management and asked her if they had some kind of login sheets.
I need a list of all your hotel guests.
The hotel let me know that everybody that checked in didn't show IDs.
This is the list.
The bad thing about that, not checking the IDs, anybody could just pretty much walk in and give a fake name, and then we have no record of who was actually there because the cameras wasn't working.
Even with the search of the guest log, Kenny's rolling the dice. He doesn't know what's going to happen, but he's shooting for it.
I got that entire log sheet for the hotel. I specifically pulled everybody because we didn't know exactly what room the party was in, but we know it was on the 3rd floor.
Thanks.
He's got to sit down and go name for name, and that's a lot of work to do. Kenny has his work cut out for him.
Detective Thompson headed to the hospital to check on the other 2 victims.
He learned that Hayshawn's cousin, Darnell, who had been in critical condition, is now stable. So thankfully, it appeared that this case would remain a single homicide.
But right now, Darnell was in the ICU and unable to speak. The 3rd victim, Hayshawn's brother, was in recovery. He was able to speak with Detective Thompson.
He provided the exact same story that Detective Thompson heard from Shauna.
He even provided the same description of the shooter.
It's always good when your witnesses' stories match.
He also believed that the police had a picture of the suspect he'd be able to identify him.
Detective Thompson then headed back to the office to begin the not-so-glamorous part of being a homicide detective.
That's when you gotta roll up your sleeves and get elbow deep in paperwork. Over the next couple of days, Kenny Thompson digs through all 100 names listed on the guest log.
I'm just checking any and all police database, the DMV, just seeing if I can pull up pictures and pretty much see if anybody matches the descriptions.
Where are my dreads?
Kenny Thompson is looking for a black male with dreads, but there's a ton of black males in Shreveport with dreads, so he's got a lot of work to do.
Here we go.
The only thing I can do at this point is pick out people from those pictures and possibly put them in lineups and show them to the witnesses.
Right now, Kenny needs to sit down with the witness, Shauna, put these lineups in front of her and see if she can pick out a shooter.
It's Detective Jones.
I get a detective that's not familiar with the case at all to show these lineups.
I need you to take a look at these and tell me if anyone looks familiar.
And it was brilliant for Kenny to do that because this detective knows nothing. It's a blind lineup. No defense attorney can now challenge the fact that it was coerced or you guided the witness in picking the suspect.
Nobody here.
All right. Got another one. Take your time.
I was watching her as she was looking through the lineup. She's kind of scanning it, and it's like a tense moment. Sometimes people don't pick people out of lineups.
No.
She just didn't recall anybody that looked familiar.
Last one.
Detective Kenny Thompson, he's taking a shot in the dark. He's only going by people that checked in a hotel that week. This is a form of due diligence.
That's him. That's the guy right here.
You sure?
Yes.
Shauna, she picks out Aaron Mayweather, which is one of the guys that rented a room on the 3rd floor.
Kenny Thompson is absolutely excited. This is the moment he's waiting for.
He was there, but he wasn't the guy I saw shooting. He was the guy standing next to the guy firing the gun.
Even though Shauna hasn't identified the shooter, he's getting one step closer to closure.
So they both got dreads.
And I'm like, we finally got something. You know, we got something to work with.
Thank you for your time, Miss Shauna.
Although she's not saying this guy's a shooter, but he was with the shooter. He left with the shooter. That's big for me.
Think it's time for a warrant?
Not yet.
Kenny has enough probable cause to get a murder warrant for this person, but he doesn't. He does his due diligence, and he is patient because he knows he's got a lot more work to do.
This is Detective Thompson.
It was very easy to track him down. He was cooperative and willing to come in and speak with me.
So later that day, Aaron Mayweather shows up at the police department for an interview.
This is during the height of COVID. Everyone's wearing masks. The witness and Detective Thompson.
Do you wish to make a statement and talk about this shooting that I'm investigating?
The goal of getting a suspect in for the initial interview is to lock them into their truth, whatever they want to say, even the lies. Because later on, when you start to prove those lies wrong, they can't deny they said what they said. It's on video, it's on audio.
I gotta ask you straight out, just for the record. So you don't know anything about a shooting that occurred on that date? No, sir. I asked him where he was during the shooting. He told me he was at work, but what was really weird about that, I never gave him a time of the shooting, so I'm thinking like, how do you know you were at work?
Detective Thompson actually confronts Mr. Mayweather, and he just blurts out, "I'm always at work." That's a bit suspect. Detective Thompson kind of just rolls with it, and he gives Mr. Mayweather the exact date and time.
You just told me you wasn't there, so do you remember what you was doing Sunday morning at 1 in the morning? Work, at work.
Mayweather sticks to his story. And in any good interview, if a suspect just continues to stick to their story and you have hard evidence, you got to show it to him.
I said, well, you're telling me you're at work, but I have someone that pointed you out of a photographic lineup that says you were there at the shooting.
That's the guy right here.
And his reply to that was, I get that a lot. He said, they say it's a guy that looks like me around the city. I must have a twin. I've heard that several times, when I bring suspects in. So I'm thinking like, okay, this is BS.
Detective Thompson's not believing him one bit.
You are hereby under, as you can see, an underlying investigation.
Detective Kenny Thompson is interviewing Aaron Mayweather. He's a potential suspect in the murder of Hayshawn Collins.
At 1 a.m. he was at work. Yes, sir.
He denies any involvement and claims he was at work when the shooting happened.
My shift starts at 11 p.m. Okay. Ends at 7 a.m.
Detective Thompson thinks he's lying, and that's because he was listed on the hotel's guest registry.
That's him. That's the guy right here.
And a witness picked him out of the lineup as being with the shooter.
So you don't know anything about a shooting that occurred on that date? No, sir. Felt like he was hiding something.
It's time for Detective Thompson to dig in and get the truth.
When was the last time you actually been to a hotel and got a room in your name? Hell, I can't remember. That's something I don't do. Okay. That's why I'm so confused about it all. They got my name in a room? Yeah, their name was on the room number, yeah. So, yes. That's crazy. I'm like, holy crap, here we go again.
Detective Thompson then steers the conversation back to Mayweather's work, which he says is at a gas station.
What do you do? Like, clean up or take out the trash, bathroom. I got you. How do you clock in? Like, what's the form of clock in, man? He said that you can clock in and out on your phone from anywhere. So at that point, it's like red flag for me.
This brother's saying he's got an actual app on his phone where he can just click in. That's awfully convenient.
That doesn't alibi him out.
Well, I'm gonna show you my time thing. Okay. I'll clock in and test itself. I was thinking like, okay, maybe he clocked in at the hotel and was enjoying the party when he was supposed to be at work, but maybe he is showing at work on the clock. I asked him, is there anybody that can verify that he was at work? He said we would have to go there and, look at the cameras.
At this point, Detective Thompson feels like he's got enough, so he ends the interview.
If you was at work, man, they vouch for you, have nothing to worry about. So I'm not gonna hold you here. I'm gonna let you go ahead and go back to work, man. I didn't have enough to hold him to arrest him, so I just got a statement from him. I had to let him go that day, and I continued my investigation to verify the things that he said.
Yo, Kenny, what's up?
What's up, my guy?
We met with Detective Thompson to see how he was going to tag this guy either in or out of his investigation. How confident are you that Aaron Mayweather is your suspect?
Super confident that he's the suspect. He told me he works at a gas station, which is about maybe 20 minutes from where the homicide occurred. Once I let him go, as he's leaving, I'm leaving. I'm going straight to his job.
Not hesitating.
That's it.
Going straight over there to verify what he's saying.
That's it. Once I get to his job, I see cameras out there, so jumping up and down again. I'm like, okay, we got some cameras this time, so speak with management. But the manager's just like really rude and standoffish with me and told me, he just didn't know if they work. He don't know how to work and pretty much kick rocks.
20 minutes had transpired when you left Aaron Mayweather till you arrive at his job. There's plenty of time for this manager to get the call from Aaron saying, hey man, the cops are coming, cover for me. Isn't that what you were thinking?
Most definitely.
And the manager's playing backup for his running back.
Most definitely.
He's definitely blocking back.
That's
he
exactly.
Wants nothing. He's not trying to let you cross the line.
That's exactly my mind frame at the time.
What are you thinking at this point? What are you going to do with this?
So at this point, I made my mind up that he's not going to help me, so I'm going to have to go do other things, which I actually obtained a search warrant to go in there and shut down and pull the whole video system.
That's what's
up. And I actually called management and told them what I was about to do. And at that point, the management told me they could get the video for me from a remote location.
Oh, wow.
Imagine that. All that smoke screen they're putting up, and all of a sudden, from a remote location, they could pull the video when you start threatening to take their system out.
Crazy.
Definitely.
Clever move. Clever move.
I like that. A few days later, Detective Thompson receives the video.
They provided me with the time frames that I was looking for as far as for his job, and I was able to review that footage.
Here we go. Right now, this is it. The moment of truth for Detective Thompson.
His whole investigation hinges on this footage.
If the footage doesn't show Aaron Mayweather at work, then bam, this brother's caught in a lie. There's no more alibi.
But if this guy was really at work like he said he was, Kenny's back to square one with 0 suspects and 0 leads.
I'll be damned.
If he was at work, man, they probably have nothing to worry about.
The #1 suspect in the murder of Hayshawn Collins is using his job as an alibi.
Here we go.
Detective Thompson's about to find out for sure whether or not his suspect is lying.
I'll be damned.
Detective Kenny Thompson finally gets this video. And it turns out this brother Mayweather is actually sitting at work.
Unbelievable.
He was at work during that whole time. Like, I watched from every angle. I watched the parking lot. He never left.
You all right? Suspect's in the clear.
He can't be at 2 places at one time. And the place where he worked from the crime scene was well over 20 minutes to get there. There was no way that, he could even just slip away.
But the witness picked him out.
Yeah, but you know how that goes.
When you're showing lineups of witnesses, it's a toss-up. Sometimes they make mistakes.
I mean, but his name was on the room, too.
I know the odds are crazy.
And what that means is that this room was rented by a different Aaron Mayweather.
I'm back to square one.
What's the coincidence somebody picked him out of a lineup? His name's on the hotel receipt. This guy comes in and tells me he must have a twin. I was totally shocked.
You know what that means? My girl Shauna's done.
Right now, Shauna can't be used for arrest purposes. She can be used later for court just as a fact witness on which she observed at the time it happened.
At least you still have your other 2 Vics.
Yeah.
If Kenny identifies another suspect, he's got surviving victims that actually saw what happened.
At this point, I have a 100% solve rate, and I'm thinking if I had one that probably wasn't going to get solved, I was thinking at that moment it might be this one.
After striking out on Aaron Mayweather, that's when the case went ice cold.
Detective Thompson contacted Crime Stoppers for some help. They issued a press release on the case.
And our boy Kenny prayed someone would call and give him a lead to chase.
The outreach paid off. An anonymous tipster reached out
and stated that a guy named Peanut was involved in the murder.
When we worked cases in Atlanta, Peanut was a very popular street name.
And it was the exact same thing in Shreveport.
In fact, when he ran the name through the database, he ended up getting about 100 guys named Peanut. That's part of the job.
It's not sexy, but Detective Thompson started doing background on all the individuals.
And he was getting nowhere fast.
A few days later, another tip comes in.
Got a hot one for you. Peanut's got a real name.
Their tip said that Dontrell Jameson was the suspect.
That's a jumping off spot.
I looked up a Dontrell Jameson. He was a real person, but he didn't have any ties to the name Peanut. So I started searching family members, family history. They had someone connected with that same last name Jameson, which was a Darion Jameson that goes by Peanut.
Darion goes by Peanut? He's 17?
What's he look like?
Yeah, I'll check.
First I saw his picture in our database, and he didn't have any dreads or anything like the people said, but, you know, appearances changed.
All right, hang on.
I started looking on like social media sites and stuff. And there was a Facebook page for him where he actually had dreads.
Let's go talk to this guy.
All right. I'm getting his info now.
I looked up Darion Jamerson. I could see criminal history.
He's in the win.
Darion is already on the run because he's an escapee from the juvenile detention center.
I'm not gonna sit on my hands. Come on, man.
Detective Thompson has no idea if this lead is legit, but he gets out of the office to hit the streets to see if he can make something out of it.
Have a look.
I feel pretty confident enough to go ahead and put Darion Jamerson, aka Peanut, into a lineup and go ahead and show those lineups to the victims that were out there that night.
Kenny does the same thing he did with witness Shauna and has a different detective show the new lineup to Darnell.
In the back of my mind, I was thinking, you know, hey, this may be a good tip.
This is such a nerve-wracking moment for any detective.
If he picks the wrong guy, he'll have no witnesses.
Yeah. Which one?
And the case will be dead in the water.
Got a hot one for you.
Shreveport detective Kenny Thompson is working a new lead in the Hayshawn Collins murder investigation.
Peanut's got a real name.
The shooter may be a 17-year-old guy named Darion Jameson. He goes by the nickname Peanut.
Have a look.
Detective Thompson puts his photo in a lineup and has it shown to one of the surviving victims.
Anybody look familiar?
It feels like a make or break moment in this case.
Detective Thompson's on pins and needles right now.
Yeah. Which one? That's him.
He selected image number 2, which was Darion Jamerson. He indicated that that's the person that shot him and the other victims at the scene. When he says that, I'm just, you know, like jumping for joy in my mind. I'm like, you know, this is a hit. This has to be it.
Detective Kenny Thompson also meets with Hayshawn's brother, the other victim.
He was able to select Darion Jamerson out of the lineup as the person that shot him as well. It's like everything's starting to come together now, so I'm feeling really good about this case.
Detective Thompson was more positive than ever that Darion Jameson was his guy. He just had to track his brother down.
He was also working on finding addresses for Darion and his known associates. He was trying to find out as much as he could about him and who he hangs out with.
Sometimes as a homicide detective, when you're searching hard for a suspect and you catch a lucky break and the guy falls right in your lap. That happened with Detective Thompson in this case. It happened in one of the most crazy and random ways.
N27 is in pursuit, I-10 towards Elysian Field.
We had an active police chase, and I remember listening to it over the radio. He described this vehicle as a white Nissan Altima.
One black male suspect. He's on Route 40.
It sounds like something out of an action movie.
Normally when somebody's running like that, you know, especially in broad daylight, it's probably something serious.
Heading into a neighborhood. I'm backing off.
He decided to call the police chase off for safety reasons because the vehicle was traveling at a very high rate of speed and the time of day in the area that it was in, and children possibly getting out of school around that time. Moments later, there was a call coming in on 911.
There's been an accident.
A vehicle matching that same description just wrecked out and crashed into a telephone pole, pretty much wrapped around the pole.
The suspect fled on foot.
Kenny Thompson doesn't know who was in the car, whether it was one or two people or more, but there's a blood trail left.
Looks like somebody had some serious injuries in there.
Dispatch, I've recovered a firearm.
Officers found his 9mm weapon right outside the crashed car on the ground.
Requesting assistance.
He asked for a violent crimes detective because of the nature of the chase, and there was a firearm involved, so.
This is Detective Thompson.
The way Shreveport PD does business, homicide detectives don't just deal with just homicide, they deal with all violent crimes. So Kenny Thompson himself gets assigned to this case.
Bag the gun and get it to the lab to be analyzed.
Copy.
Any firearms they know homicide likes to get them to compare them for any cases that we may have. We could get like DNA off of the firearm as well.
You've got crime lab candy. You want to get that to the lab absolutely quick.
Let me know if you find anything else.
The officer gives me the license plate of the vehicle and it comes back to Tamika Williams.
Tamika Williams has no criminal history. This is a straight citizen that pays taxes and owns a car. Never been in trouble with the police. But Kenny takes it a step further. He starts researching Tamika Williams' social media presence.
Who was driving your car?
I searched her on social media and just go through friends.
Detective Thompson sees that Tamika Williams has a friend in her social media profile that has an unusual name.
It said Nut Gang, and when you click on those three dots in the right corner, it shows their real name that they sign up with, which was Darion Jameson.
Oh my God.
Are you kidding me right now? This right here is God's work. I mean, what are the odds?
Yes.
The exact guy who Detective Thompson is looking for is somehow associated with the owner of the car, Tamika, whose car just got wrapped around a telephone pole. So now the question is Darion Jameson the driver of the car that got away?
Hello?
Is this Tamika?
Yeah.
Detective Thompson needs to get with Tamika ASAP.
I need you to come to my office for an interview.
This system may be able to bring this case home.
Yeah, that's him.
Detective Thompson has just learned the identity of Hayshawn Collins' killer, 17-year-old Darion Jameson.
The suspect fled on foot.
While searching for Darion, he's called to assist on a totally unrelated police chase.
Dispatch, I've recovered a firearm.
I just continued to work the case, and it's like a miracle happened.
Oh my God.
Detective Thompson finds out that the owner of the vehicle, Tamika Williams, has some kind of relationship with Darion Jameson.
I need you to come to my office for an interview.
He needs Tamika to give up the tapes on how they're connected.
Okay, I'll come in.
See you soon.
This is straight out of a Hollywood script, and we're about to get that big movie ending.
Who is this?
My impression of her, she seemed at first like, she didn't really want to give a lot of information.
Look, I'm working a homicide here.
All right, that's Peanut.
She says, that's the guy that was driving my car. I'm dating his dad. So at this point, I'm thinking, okay, if this is the guy that they're saying from the tip, we have a gun, and that gun was a 9mm, so I'm like extra interested now.
You found a gun?
I don't know nothing about that.
How can I find him?
I don't know.
According to Tamika, Darion just took her car keys without permission.
I believe everything Tanika was telling me.
I need you to call me if you see him.
All right.
As far as the investigation is concerned, I'm actually feeling pretty good at this moment. I feel like I'm on the right track.
Now that Detective Thompson knows that these two events are related, he can take that 9mm and compare it to the 9mm shell casings found at the crime scene and see if it indeed is his murder weapon.
Anything on the gun?
No, not yet.
the gun's at the lab, and that's going to take a while for those results to come back. I feel pretty confident enough to go ahead and generate an arrest warrant for Darion Jamerson, which is really big for me.
Within a couple of days, Darion Jamerson is tracked down, brought to the homicide office for questioning.
He declined to make a statement. Kind of seemed very nonchalant, like it wasn't a big deal while he was in there. I wasn't surprised that he didn't want to talk about it. Whenever I have a suspect that's nonchalant like that, they don't value life, and they really don't care about the consequences that come with it either. And to me, that's a very dangerous person.
Even after a suspect is arrested, that doesn't mean the case is over.
This is Kenny.
We're still working the case.
Hey, the ballistics report is done.
Yes. That actual 9mm found at a car chase is the murder weapon, and he's tied all this together? That's crazy.
We also have the suspect's DNA results.
Thank you.
His DNA came back to a match on the firearm as well.
He conclusively has proved that that gun was in the hand of his #1 murder suspect, and that weapon was used to kill his victim.
Detective Kenny Thompson, he don't need no confession. The gun just confessed to this murder.
The night of the homicide, you have Hayshawn Collins' group, and you have Darion Jamerson's group. They're at the same hotel. They don't know each other. One of the members from Hayshawn Collins' group has some kind of friendly verbal interaction with the female from the suspect's group, whether it was, a personal relationship or just a close female friend. They described him as watching over her and watching them like a guard dog.
The action spills outside, just like the witnesses reported, and Darion was still hot.
He pretty much said he felt disrespected, and after the two agreed to squash it, face to face, and they shook hands and dapped up. But as the victims are walking off, Darion starts to shoot at him. I believe he just wanted to prove a point because he made a statement, "Don't think you ain't checking me." He wanted to keep that image up and show him that, he meant business and he didn't play.
Darion Jamerson is charged with second-degree murder and 2 counts of attempted second-degree murder.
In 2022, Darion goes to trial and is convicted on all counts. And he's sentenced to 85 years in prison. I gotta tell you, I am personally impressed with your work. You did a great job in this case. I can imagine the citizens and all the families that you touch are very appreciative because I can see it.
Thank you. Yeah, most definitely, brother. Thank you.
This case, when I think about the aftermath of what happened, Hayshawn, who did nothing but really try to protect his family, and he paid for that with his life. And that's the saddest part of this whole story.
The saddest part of that commentary also is the fact that this is a commonplace situation that Vince and I dealt with for almost 20 years. Beef over absolutely nothing.
We have 3 black male victims.
She kind of came in late to the basketball scene, but when she came, she was a force.
She was one of the top guards in Memphis, which, got her a scholarship. And something tells me, turn around. So I'll go back to her room, and this time I turn on the lights.
The blood was along the wall, there was blood on the floor, on the bed.
Oh, Gary! Oh, man!
Hello, number 1.
Peter! Peter!
You're really just left with a lot of questions. What went down here in this apartment?
And she kind of shoved me, and I kind of shoved her back. It was a fire waiting to be started. It just needed the right match.
"30 minutes from Nashville, Murfreesboro, Tennessee is home to Middle Tennessee State University.
MTSU is a commuter college There are very few people who live on campus, so most students end up renting apartments.
Raiders Crossings Apartments, which is located on South Rutherford. It's maybe about 10 minutes from campus. Just apartments that are normally rented by students who are going to MTSU.
On March 2nd, 2011, at 6:45 p.m., the Murfreesboro Police Department receives a 911 call from the complex.
911 emergency?
Yes, I just need a police dispatcher to go to Raiders Crossing and check in the last building, just knock on the third floor door.
For what?
Just, I heard Biden.
Please put on a low priority. This because it was not high priority at the time. No one has physically seen anything, just suspicion, so you don't want to rush to a scene like that.
Moments later, a more urgent call comes in.
Hello, 911? Man, where are you at? Where are you at?
He gives the address. It's the same as the first call.
What's going on?
My daughter came and my girl's bleeding to death. Please! Tina, please, keep moving, Tina. Keep moving, Tina. Tina, keep moving, Tina. Oh, Lord. Yes, I like her.
Okay, we've already got police and ambulance on the way.
Now, it's concrete, you know you really got something, so now we got to step it up because someone's in danger. It's time to roll.
When the officers arrive, the male caller meets them outside. He identifies himself as Casey Anuna.
He was very distressed and was screaming for help.
I was like, man, someone stabbed my girlfriend, apartment numbers.
One of the officers spots a woman ducked behind a row of cars. Then she takes off running.
You're just thinking maybe she done did something or something's going on because now you don't know.
Officer Brown was able to catch up. He sat her down on the parking lot and began asking her questions. And she immediately just responded that her roommate had been in a fight, was injured, possibly dead, and that she didn't know anything else that was going on.
KC shows a second officer to the apartment.
Officer Christy English ran inside of the apartment to check on the victim and immediately tried to start giving her CPR and helping her. She had been stabbed right above the heart and the chest, and she had several other cuts in her upper torso area.
Casey identifies the victim as his girlfriend, 21-year-old Tina Stewart.
I know she's a fighter. That's one thing I knew. And sometimes, you know, they tell you pray. So I'm telling God, like, you know, make it happen.
Clantina Tina Stewart was born October 17, 1989, and raised in Memphis, Tennessee.
She was a tough little girl growing up, and that toughness carried her onto the basketball court.
She was a extremely great high school athlete, starting in the 10th grade, 11th grade.
She kind of came in late to the scene, like the basketball scene. Even though she was older than me, I still had been playing longer than her. But when she came, she was a force. Like, it was crazy. She came out of nowhere.
My senior year, you know, she was, you know, one of the top guards in Memphis. And if you're one of the top guards in Memphis, you're one of the top guards in the state. And which, you know, got her a scholarship to one of the best programs in Tennessee.
In the summer of 2008, Tina headed to Murfreesboro to begin training at Middle Tennessee State University.
The men's basketball team was in the weight room. We were lifting, working hard, and then I remember the girls' basketball team came in. We were trying to see who the new girls there, who's new on campus, and things like that. So, I mean, that's where I first initially saw Tina Stewart.
He's a basketball player for MTSU, just like Tina. They hit it off from the beginning.
We both had a passion for the same things. So, and it's kind of rare where you have a person who can share the same things.
She was a free spirit, you know? She wasn't too much, it was kind of hard to tie down. But he gave her a little balance, because he wasn't gonna be all over the place, and she wanted to be wherever he was.
This love that we had in college, you know, it was genuine. I would say that, definitely genuine.
After 2 years of living on campus, Tina moved into an off-campus apartment. She was paired with a roommate, 18-year-old Shanterica Madden.
Shanterica was a good student, very studious. She had straight A's throughout high school. She had a full academic scholarship because she had worked so hard as a student. They probably looked at the background that they were both from Memphis and thought, you know, this is probably going to be a good match.
Shanterica knew of Tina because she was, popular basketball, popular staple in the community as far as sports. But Tina didn't know who she was.
When it came to personality, Tina and Shanterica were opposites.
Shanterica Madden is a very sheltered, quiet, withdrawn, introverted mouse of a person. She is not someone who walks in a room and you just immediately gravitate toward, which is the exact opposite of Tina.
Tina, she had tons of friends, very outgoing person. A lot of people loved her.
After living together for a few months, the roommates discovered more differences.
Tina was really clean.
You could tell that Shanterica didn't have a lot of life experience. Like she didn't know how to, clean up a kitchen and maintain cleanliness. She was very sheltered at home.
Shanterica's housekeeping irritated Tina. But it was KC that bothered Shanterica.
Shanterica and Tina had disagreements about Tina's boyfriend, Casey Anuna, staying over.
That was a shocker because when I was over there, I was never like in the areas like long periods of time or, I was always trying to, I'm in the room or I'm gone, I'm out of the apartment. I wasn't trying to be in the same space as them because I understand that, this is not where I stay.
Despite the friction, Tina kept her focus on her studies and basketball.
In the spring, the Middle Tennessee Blue Raiders were scheduled to play in the Sun Belt Conference women's basketball tournament.
But just 3 days before the tournament begins, KC calls 911 to report that Tina has been stabbed. Paramedics arrive.
They started doing CPR on her immediately, even though they could tell she's injured pretty bad.
As paramedics load Tina onto a stretcher, KC goes back outside to speak with police in the parking lot.
I saw the stretcher come down, I'm just like, man, I'm praying even harder now in my mind.
Police begin to establish who's who.
You got a young lady was laying there in a pool of blood.
Casey Anuna is the young man who made the call. The woman who is running from the police is Shanterica Madden.
They had no idea who she was or how she was involved.
At the beginning of an investigation, everybody is going to be a suspect.
Shortly after 7 p.m. on March 2nd, 2011, detectives with the Murfreesboro Police Department are investigating the brutal attack on college basketball star Tina Stewart.
She had a pulse, maybe a faint pulse, and they're going to keep working on her.
Tina's boyfriend, KC, and roommate, Shanterica, are on the scene When investigators get an update on her condition, they learn that shortly after Tina arrived in the ER, she succumbed to her injuries.
She was pronounced dead at the hospital.
Tina was stabbed from the front and the back. So the wound that was right above her heart is what killed her. She bled from that because it nicked some sort of artery.
The lady, the police officer, she's like, she didn't make it. I just broke down.
Both Casey and Shanterica are escorted to the station.
They take me downtown. She even taken in for questioning.
You want to separate the two and get separate statements from each person. That way you can tell what's going on, who's telling the truth.
Detectives go inside Tina's bedroom, where the attack took place.
The blood was along the wall. There was blood on the floor, on the bed. It was a very messy crime scene. This was a very violent attack.
But investigators are unable to locate what caused Tina's injuries.
They're looking for any kind of weapons. You got no weapon at this time.
They spot something suspicious in the kitchen.
When they search the apartment, they find a knife block that is missing a couple of knives.
Investigators also collect Tina's phone as evidence. Other than that and the missing knives, the scene yields few clues.
This when you got to slow down and take all the evidence and start talking to people one-on-one.
Back at the station, detectives sit down with KC. He explains what led to his desperate 911 call.
Casey had got done with practice, and he and Tina had dinner plans. He sent a few text messages, and the response that he got just didn't sound like Tina.
I get a text back like I'm in the shower. I look at it and I'm just like, you know, I've been dating this girl for 3 years. This is not how she texts.
He stated that she was more emotional. She sent emojis, I love you, more lovely-dovey type stuff, to where this was more generic.
You know, I see you later, not the letter C, she's spelling it out. And this person's not texting like that. I was living with my fraternity brother, a great friend of mine, and I told him, man, I want to go over to Tina's place. I don't feel right about it, you know? And I go to her apartment complex, I touch the door handle, and I was like, you know, I knocked.
Shanterica answered the door.
I was like, is Tina here? She's like, I haven't seen her. No, she's not here. I haven't seen her. So I was like, all right.
KC tells investigators that he decided to check her room anyway.
So I walk down the hallway. In the very back room is Tina's room. The door's open. And the TV's on, but the lights are off. So I'm just like, I kind of look back, you know, and I don't hear anything. I don't look down. I don't look up. She's not on the bed. I just like, she's not in here. I just like, you know. So I walk back out, and I'm walking towards the door, and I'm like, you sure you haven't seen Tina? You know, she's like, her voice changes, like, no, I haven't seen her.
Casey made note of something he hadn't seen before.
Shanterica, he noticed she had bags and stuff packed too, and about to go out the front door.
And something tells me, like, turn around. So I turn around, and I go back to her room, and this time I turn on the lights. That's when I see Tina laying flat. So the first thing I said, we joke a lot. You know, we play. So I was like, get up, stop playing. Then I see the blood. I rush to her, I turn her over, and I see the blood everywhere. And I'm just like, my mind's everywhere. I'm trying to talk to Tina, like, hold on, fight, you know. Little to no response, but she still some life, you know. So I'm talking to her and call 911.
Shanterica heard him calling out.
She kind of had her head in the door and saying, it's not me, I didn't do it, I didn't do it, I didn't do it, I didn't do it. So she takes off. That's when I just kind of go towards, go after Shanterica. I don't want her to get away.
Responding officer came to the scene and saw him running after her.
Then I got downstairs, and that's when I was stopped.
You're really just left with a lot of questions. You know, what exactly happened? What was the cause of all this? What went down here in this apartment?
On the night of March 2nd, 2011, police in Murfreesboro, Tennessee, are investigating the fatal stabbing of 21-year-old Tina Stewart.
Her boyfriend, KC, is being questioned, and there's no reason to think that he might have done this. He's cleared pretty early on as a suspect.
KC tells investigators that he can't think of anyone who would want to harm Tina.
Like, I knew everything about this girl, Tina Stewart. You know, she told me everything. So it's like, nah, there was no other troubles going on.
Although Casey does admit that tension between Tina and Shanterica was running high.
It was mostly about the cleanliness of, or the lack of, with Shanterica, leaving things around. You know, Tina was a very, you know, neat person. Then it was like taking things or touching things without permission as far as food, and she smelling the marijuana.
Shanterica started smoking weed in the apartment, regardless of whether Tina was there. And that was a big problem for Tina.
For Tina, since she's an athlete, she gets regular drug tests. And we learned that Shanterica is a casual marijuana user. Tina, you know, doesn't want this around her. She doesn't want to end up failing a drug test from secondhand smoke.
And she want to lose a scholarship, and she also want to be in good standing with her coach, because now, you know, if I'm a star player and I'm busted with marijuana, she might not play me, and there go my hopes and dreams.
She's just like, look, I'm not your mom, not your dad. You're in college. Just don't do it in the house.
Investigators prepare to interview Shanterica. But first, they speak with an officer who says he paid a visit to the apartment just before the stabbing, at Tina's request.
He was a off-duty officer living at the apartment complex. We call him a courtesy officer. Your job is to answer any call at the complex. Loud party call, 3 in the morning, you go answer. So he got a call from the office manager that there was somebody smoking marijuana at the apartment.
The courtesy officer made his way out there. Shanterica's asking, who called on me for this? How did you even find out about this? And Tina's coming out of her room saying, I'm the one who called.
He told Shanterica to toss out the weed, not to do that again. He didn't make a formal complaint. I think that he was just trying to calm the girls down.
Did tensions between the roommates rise even higher after Tina made the call? Investigators asked Shanterica.
I understand that apparently earlier this evening there was some sort of altercation between you and your roommate.
Shanterica says that shortly before 6 p.m., she was hanging out in the apartment with her friend Nene when the courtesy officer arrived.
I guess my roommate had called the front desk, and the front desk sent the police over. And I talked to him, and he was basically like, if he searched my room and he didn't find anything, then it'll be cleared. And if I told the truth, so he searched, and he was like, well, you told the truth. And he said, but he's still gonna have to talk to the manager.
Already, investigators have caught Shanterica in a lie. They know that the courtesy officer found marijuana because they've already talked to him.
And after he left, I talked to Tina, which is my roommate. I talked to her. Then I knocked on her door and told her that I need to talk to her. And we talked. And it kind of got heated because we both kind of had attitude. And she kind of shoved me, and I kind of shoved her back. And then the next thing I know, we was fighting. she kind of just slammed my head, so she was pounding my head, and I was pounding her face, and just with my hand.
Okay.
And then she pushed me to the ground. When she had my head, she pushed me to the ground, so I was right on the ground, and I gathered her. And she was like, get out of my room, get out of my room, so I left.
According to Shanterica, Nene left the apartment soon after, and Tina was right behind her.
My roommate, she was doing something. I think she was putting her shoes because I seen her kind of roam around moving, because that's normally what she was doing. And she turned down her TV, and she put on her jacket, and she walked out the door.
Shanterica says she also left.
I walked all around the parking lot, kind of because I was trying to get out the nerves out of my system. And I didn't shut the door, I just kind of shut it. I didn't lock it, I didn't bring my keys with me.
And then she said on her way out, she did notice that there was a guy hanging up her dress that she'd never seen a complex before.
She says there's a man with dreadlocks who was in the area, who was carrying a knife.
When she returned to the apartment a little while later, the front door was open.
The door was still, it was like, wasn't closed. I kind of shut it.
The front door?
I shut the door, and it wasn't closed. It was kind of like cracked, so I just thought she came back.
She says that Tina must have come back while she was gone, and this dreadlock man must have attacked her.
He black, he got dreads, and he kind of tall, but everybody taller than me. But he got probably like 5'6". And this is the third time I've seen him over there.
Detectives don't buy it. This whole story seems made up and really unlikely.
Now, you're at a critical point right now, all right? You're at a fork in the road, okay? And I want to help you choose the right fork. Something bad happened tonight.
But Shanterica sticks to her story.
All I know, I did not kill Tina. Tina was perfectly fine when I left.
She is very, mechanical in her movements, the way she talks, the way she responded to detectives. During the whole interview process that night with police, she might as well have been a robot.
Investigators noticed something else about her behavior.
During her interview, the whole time she's kind of using a card and kind of picking the blood off the ends of her fingers.
The fight she described having with Tina wouldn't have left blood on her hands, so where did that blood come from?
Hours after the death of Tina Stewart, Murfreesboro police interview her roommate, Shanterica Madden.
They noticed that she had been absent-mindedly picking dried blood from the tips of her fingers during the interview. They're gonna go hard on her now.
Listen to me, okay? Now, I'm gonna be straight with you, okay? And I've been doing this for a long time, okay? And you got some marks on your face. I've been sitting there looking. It looks like your cheek might be a little bit swollen. I think what happened was you and Tina got to an argument, got to a physical fight that got a little out of hand. Another thing I find interesting is that you're right-handed, you got blood right here on the crook of your right hand.
She stuck to it for the longest, till she finally started breaking down slowly. And finally she said, well, I'm gonna tell you the truth.
When we talked about whatever it was, I turned around and was heading into my room, and I think I kind of bumped into her, and she was like, don't bump into me. And she shoved me, and I shoved her back.
The fighting escalated, and Shanterica knew she was outmatched.
She says that when she and Tina were fighting, she was scared because Tina was an athlete and much stronger than her.
I kept saying, that hurt, because my head started painting real bad. And she had a knife sitting, I think it was on the bed. So, I don't know what she was doing. She was cutting something. But she had a knife sitting in the bed, and I grabbed that knife after, because she still had my head down. She was pounding me on the head, and I grabbed the knife and just kind of went like this. When she was coming towards me, I kind of went like this, and I just hit her. cleaned it up, and she fell.
She does admit that she stabbed Tina, but says, of course, that it was in self-defense.
I didn't mean for this to happen.
And the problem with the whole thing is, why didn't you call the police at that time?
I had my phone in my hand. I was like, I need to call somebody. I need to call somebody. And I was going to go call the police. I had my phone, but I couldn't find the number that I wanted to call.
Where's the knife at now?
I don't remember. I don't remember if I dropped it or I took it outside when I went outside. I don't remember.
You remember who didn't want it? Be sitting out there in that field or something, and some kid get a hold of it or something like that.
I don't think so. Okay. I can't remember.
Investigators get word that officers back at the crime scene may have the answer.
A neighbor saw Shanterica around the dumpster just after this incident occurred. Police check it out. They do find a knife wrapped in a blanket that's covered with blood and is obviously their murder weapon.
This knife also matches a knife found in the apartment.
Investigators confront Shanterica with the new evidence.
They finally went to the dumpster and found the knife and the blanket, so now I got a piece of the evidence. And now I'm going to tell Miss Madden I have this.
Shanterica changes her story again.
She does admit that she basically just freaked out afterwards and decided to get rid of the knife in the dumpster.
She didn't call 911, but instead went to dispose of the knife. That puts another dent in her claim of self-defense because it looks like she was trying to hide what she'd done.
Meanwhile, news of Tina's death has brought the MTSU campus to its knees.
The Lady Raiders were well loved. This particular team was very well known because they were very talented and they were just very popular. This whole situation shocked everyone more than I think that anybody really understood.
Police hold a press conference to officially announce Tina's death. They also ask anyone with any information about the crime to call in.
At 6:20 p.m., Shanterica's friend, Renee Nene Reese, calls police.
Renee Reese tells police that she was there when the security officer came to the apartment and when Shanterica confronted Tina.
Renee Reese, friend to accused killer Shanterica Madden, tells investigators that she was in the apartment when an off-duty police officer was summoned by Shanterica's roommate, Tina.
And then as soon as he left, she said that Miss Madden immediately went to Tina's room, knocked on the door, and confronted her.
She says Shanterica was mad at Tina for calling the off-duty officer on her, and they started arguing, and it got heated quickly.
She said she went back into Miss Madden's room because they was arguing very loudly, and she wouldn't be a part of it, and she could hear banging and arguing.
Renee says she also heard someone saying, "She got a knife," and "Stop, my heart hurts," or "My heart is beating," something like that. At some point, things got quiet. Then Shanterica knocked on the bedroom door, and Renee let her in. Shanterica said, "We have to go." Renee saw blood on Shanterica's arm, so she asked Shanterica what happened to Tina, and Shanterica said she left. Renee says she glanced towards Tina's room.
She did say that she could see Tina's leg hanging through the doorway. So she did see it, that she was down and injured, so she knew something was wrong.
Renee says she grabbed her purse and headed for the door.
In the living room, she said she saw Shanterica holding a blanket, stuffing it in a big, clear plastic bag. As she was leaving the apartment, she saw Shanterica drop the bag and a piece of knife fell on the floor. Renee says Shanterica tried to hand her the bag.
She asked her actually to throw it away for her. She said, "No, I'm not going to do that."
Renee left. She tells police that she placed the first call to 911.
Okay. All right. What's your name?
I don't want to say my name. I don't feel comfortable saying my name.
Shanterica tried to get her friend to help her cover up the crime. She didn't call 911. This is not looking like self-defense.
They charged her with first-degree premeditated murder.
News of Shanterica's arrest is another blow to the stunned community.
When she was officially charged, I wouldn't say it was a sign of relief. I just wanted justice to be served, you know.
Tina was a superstar in Memphis. You know, everyone knew who she was.
Investigators focus on building their case.
They know from the start that she's going to show up to court claiming self-defense, so they need to be able to counter that.
Investigators discover a series of postings on Tina's social media from the day of her death.
Before the incident, Tina was on Twitter blasting Shanterica on social media, saying that she didn't care anymore, that she was over it. She was sick of the situation.
At 5:37 p.m., Tina tweeted, "I just called the police on my roommate. I feel like a snitch, but I don't like this."
You can see where she didn't really want to tell on her. But then again, she didn't want to lose her scholarship, so she's put in a hard place. So what do? You do what you need to do.
At 5:58 p.m., Tina tweeted, "Police is here." Then, a minute later, "This gonna be too hot." And finally, her last tweet at 6:01 p.m., "I hope he finds some, please, please."
Tina saw how much she had on the line. Shanterica had everything to lose as well if her parents found out that she was doing weed. So they both had a lot to lose. It was a fire waiting to be started, honestly. Like, it just needed the right match.
Investigators speak with Tina's friend, Scooter Macklin. She tells them she was on the phone with Tina when Shanterica came in to confront her.
She asked Tina why she didn't let her know what was going on, but Tina's response was, "I had already spoken to you earlier this week about this situation being a situation and that it couldn't be one. This is what happened, this is the result." And she left the room. Like, me and Tina started back talking on the phone. She left the room for like 45 seconds, maybe a minute, and then she came back.
Miss Stewart was on the phone with Miss Backlund up to like 6:04 and the phone just connected.
And I'm calling back, but I didn't get a response. But by then, I got a text message that said, "Finna get in the shower, I'll call you right back."
By the time she gets that text, police think that Tina is bleeding out and Shanterica is trying to buy time by sending texts from her phone.
She did not try to help Tina. Instead, she tried to hide the truth about the situation.
On March 11th, 2011, 9 days after Tina Stewart was found dead, Shanterica is released on a $100,000 bond.
Shanterica didn't have any history of violence beforehand. She had never been arrested. She didn't have a juvie record.
I was the most disappointed about the fact that she was able to post bond. She posted bond and went to Memphis and went to the mall. My phone was going crazy again. Most people couldn't believe that she had the audacity to just be walking around in the world like that.
On May 9th, 2012, Shanterica Madden goes on trial for first-degree murder.
The courtroom stayed packed more than I'd ever seen it. Just overwhelming, the number of people that came out to support Tina and her family. And Shanterica's family was there during the whole trial. Her mom and dad were right there in the front row behind the defense table the whole time.
Just as prosecutors anticipated, Shanterica pleads not guilty, claiming she acted in self-defense. She takes the stand to tell her version of events.
Tina confronted Shantirka, and that Shantirka was acting in self-defense, and that she just happened to see the knife that was in Tina's room on the bed and then grabbed the knife. The knife was already in Tina's room because Tina had been eating a snack or something, and there was a knife on the bed, but it just happened to be there. And so she used that in self-defense in the heat of the moment.
Prosecutors argue that the forensic evidence tells a different story.
The blood spatter showed that Tina had been stabbed from behind initially, and then at some point had turned around and tried to defend herself. That aligns with what the coroner found during the autopsy.
You can see on her hands that she was cut, and she was trying to defend herself from being attacked.
Tina was stabbed in her back, upper torso area at one point, so that doesn't lend itself to a self-defense argument.
They also argue that the knife wasn't on Tina's bed.
Nobody had ever seen Tina leave dirty dishes or food just sitting out on the bed. That was not her personality whatsoever. She was very clean, conscientious about being clean, and she usually didn't eat in her bedroom.
As soon as she went to grab the knife, she was formulating the plan, was their argument. That she had to make a willful decision to pick up the knife and to use it.
Shantirka did not immediately call 911. She did not try to help Tina. Instead, she immediately started trying to hide evidence, knowing full well that her roommate was bleeding to death on the other side of the wall.
On May 14th, the jury reaches a verdict.
The jury found her guilty of second-degree murder and tampering with evidence. They concluded that, yes, she was guilty, but they couldn't definitively say she planned this murder.
Later at sentencing, Shantirka received 29 years in prison, 25 for the second-degree murder charge, and 4 years added onto that for the tampering with evidence charge.
29 years versus a person that's lost their life, it's not equal. It's not equal. You shouldn't be able to, she can come out and still be able to at least do something, experience something, whereas Tina can't.
I've been watching the March Madness in the Final Four. I could see my best friend being one of those coaches. You know, I could see my best friend standing out there clapping and supporting some girls and giving them an opportunity to shine and show who they are. And that's ultimately what I feel like was taken from the world.
Cơ hội để tổ chức một tình huống phản công cho đội bóng. Thủ môn đã cản phá xuất sắc. Và kỳ vọng vô cùng hoàn hảo.
Một chân sút thương hạng trong trận đấu ngày hôm nay. Bàn thắng quá hoàn hảo.
Bàn thắng đã tới sau pha điểm bóng đơn giản từ tình huống cản phá trước đó của thủ môn. Vâng, tỷ số lúc này đang là 4-0. Một tình huống dứt điểm. Cú sút đưa bóng đi trúng cột.
Ném biên cho Manchester City.
Anh ấy đang chuẩn bị thực hiện pha tạt bóng.
Mark Brighton đã nổ súng phát ghi bàn đẳng cấp.
Một tình huống ghi bàn rất ấn tượng của cầu thủ đó.
Đó là pha dàn xếp tạt bóng từ bên phía cánh trái hoàn hảo và bàn thắng đã được ghi. Đó là pha đánh đầu hoàn hảo, một bàn thắng tuyệt vời.
Họ đang dẫn trước với khoảng cách khá xa. Một tình huống dứt điểm, pha ghi bàn cực kỳ đẳng cấp.
Bàn thắng đã tới, thật sự đơn giản khi có tới hai cầu thủ áp sát thủ môn.
Tỷ số lúc này đang là vô cùng cách biệt rồi. Rodrigo. Một tình huống phản công nhanh, một siêu phẩm đã được vẽ ra.
Đáng tiếc khi bàn thắng không được công nhận. Một tình huống việt vị.
Rodrigo. Đó là pha phản công. Một cú sút. Một bàn thắng tuyệt vời.
Đó là một chân sút đẳng cấp, một cơ hội không thể tuyệt vời hơn.
Đội bóng giành chiến thắng đã chơi áp đảo trong suốt thời gian đã qua với thế trận một chiều.
Tchouaméni.
Vinicius Junior.
Casemiro.
Đó là tình huống phân bóng lên cho thủ môn.
Christian Eriksen.